Welcome to our PD, Affirming New Immigrant Students from Latin America. I'm Deborah Warner.
And I'm Carolina Brew, and we're both ESOL PD specialists with the Department of Multicultural Education. Welcome to our training. Here are content and language objectives for our time together. Take a moment to read them. As new immigrants from Latin America countries enroll in our schools each year, how can we affirm their history, culture, and language? We will share some newcomer stories and some resources available to promote a welcoming and inclusive learning environment for our immigrant students. As we're going through this PD, it's imperative to create an environment for professional development discussions. We'll be referencing the courageous conversation about race protocol throughout the PD. Let's take a look at the compass on the left. It was created to help us understand how we can each process and engage with information about race. It's a way to understand one another's opinions and beliefs. According to the compass, there are four ways that people deal with race: emotional, intellectual, moral, and social. The moral beliefs refers to the sense of right and wrong about what you hear, see, or experience. The intellectual needs to know more information about the issue or topic. You have to enter a thought process of what you hear, see, or experience. The emotional feelings has a strong emotional connection to the issue or topic. Has you feeling some type of way about the way you hear, see, or experience. About what you hear, see, or experience. The social is wanting to do something or to address the issue or topic. During this PD, we're going to keep the four agreements. Stay engaged. We'll be listening some tough topics and issues. Experience discomfort. This will allow you to grow and actually practice the growth mindset. Speak your truth. Please stick to I statements. We cannot speak on someone else's behalf. We are also here to express ourselves through our truth. Expect and accept non-closure. There are some people who have to have answers or solutions to things that are brought to them.
Why is this topic relevant? At the national level, the U.S. Department of Education hosted a special screening of the work done through I Learn America, which we'll learn more about together. The secretary stated, "The students represented in the film need to be seen and supported as national assets to our schools." At the School District of Palm Beach County, our district's mission is to educate, affirm, and inspire each student in an equity-embedded school system. Through policies and practices, we have committed to a quality education. Therefore, on April 19th, 2017, the School Board of Palm Beach County, Florida, adopted a resolution to promote welcoming and inclusive schools for all students and families. The district continues to work with all stakeholders to provide a clear message that will ensure the safety and welfare of all students. All children in the United States have a constitutional right to equal access to a free public education, regardless of immigration status or that of their parents. The School District of Palm Beach County will continue to honor that right. The resolution document is available in Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese on the district website. The School District of Palm Beach County's equity statement strives to create equitable and inclusive schools by transforming our system by hearing and elevating underrepresented voices, sharing power, recognizing and eliminating bias, and distributing resources to provide equitable outcomes. The School District of Palm Beach County will embrace, celebrate, and honor our students, families, staff, and community members and their unique cultural histories while ensuring each student achieves personal and academic success.
Who are the students we're focusing on for this presentation? An immigrant is a person who has come to a foreign country in order to live there. Our immigrant students may include any of the following: recently arrived newcomer students, refugee students, students with interrupted or limited formal education, unaccompanied minors who come to the country without their parents, internationally adopted students, students of migrant farm workers, students who are undocumented, students who have been separated from parents, family members at the border, students with temporary protected status, dreamers. The school district of Palm Beach County student population consists of 13.8% immigrants. We are focusing on the recently arrived newcomer students from Latin American countries in this presentation. The majority of our recently arrived newcomer students qualify for the English Learner Language Program and are referred to as ELLs. These students may have unique social, emotional, and academic needs based on their prior experiences. You can find information about each of these special populations of students from definitions to resources for working with them from the Coloring Colorado website. When a student registers to attend a Palm Beach County School District school, the student's ethnic origin and race comes from what the parent or guardian fills out in the student registration form. The Florida Department of Education race ethnicity definitions are as follows: American Indian or Alaskan Native. A person have origins in any of the original peoples of North and Central America, including Central America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. Many of our students from the Mayan culture, such as Guatemala and Honduras, self-identify with this ethnic origin or race. Black or African American. A person have origins in any of the Black racial groups in Africa. Hispanic or Latino. A person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. Two or more races. Students who select more than one racial category but do not indicate that they are Hispanic or Latino. Please keep in mind that our students are more than a label on a form. They come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. Part of affirming a new immigrant is becoming a culturally responsive educator. A culturally responsive educator understands that in order to meet the needs of our cultural linguistically diverse students, it's important to affirm and honor their culture and language. Culture is a way of thinking, being, and interacting with the world. As we look to make sure our immigrants achieve academic success, the ESSA reporting allows us to monitor the marginalized groups. Even though not all ELLs are immigrants and not all immigrants are ELLs, we can see how our students who self-identify on the registration form perform on the FSA based on the ESSA reporting. The following data on the next few slides comes from the 2019 ELA and Math FSA. On the slide, this SAELL subgroup data is a reflection of the opportunity gap some of our ELL students have experienced. Let's look at how some of our Latin American ELL students performed compared to other ELL subgroups. For ELA, the elementary ELL subgroup, 43% of the overall ELL subgroup for the students district-wide grades 3 to 5 met proficiency. As you can see, the Hispanic or Latino and the American Indian or Alaska Native subgroup score lower than the overall ELL subgroup. 58% of the overall ELL subgroup of the students district-wide grades 3 to 5 met proficiency on the Math FSA. The American Indian or Alaska Native subgroup score lower than the overall ELL subgroup. For the ESSA middle school ELL subgroup data, 33% of the overall ELL subgroup of students district-wide grades 6 through 8 met proficiency. As you can see, some ELL subgroups exceeded the overall ELL proficiency. On the other hand, the American Indian or Alaskan Native and the Hispanic or Latino scored lower than the overall ELL subgroup. 40% of the overall ELL subgroup of students district-wide grades 6 through 8 met proficiency on the Math FSA. The American Indian or Alaska Native subgroup score lower than the overall ELL subgroup. For the ESSA High School and ELL subgroup data, 24% of the overall high school ELL subgroup of students district-wide met proficiency. As you can see, the American Indian or Alaska Native and the Hispanic or Latino subgroup score lower than the overall ELL subgroup on the ELA FSA. 33% of the overall high school ELL subgroup of students district-wide met proficiency on the Math FSA. The American Indian or Alaska Native subgroup score lower than the overall ELL subgroup. Addressing these equity and opportunity gaps begins with affirming the history, culture, and language of our newcomer students from Latin America and from all other cultures too.
So, what can it look like when you do this work? Well, it's a journey. It takes commitment and work, and it absolutely takes a village. Research has shown that in culturally responsive schools, everyone feels valued, secure, and safe. This inclusive environment fosters mutual trust and respect among all stakeholders. One district initiative from the Multicultural Department is the I Learn America project. This project can be found in some of our secondary schools. It enables young immigrants to share their stories by giving them a voice and encourage them to build their own identity that is different from the negative stigma and stereotypes about immigrants. The students share their stories with their schools and communities. One school we will showcase in the school district of Palm Beach County is Palm Springs Middle School, since we both have supported them for the past 2 years. They welcomed the I Learn America project into their school to allow their immigrant students a chance to share their story. When students are able to share their story and be heard by their teachers and fellow classmates, they are being affirmed. Pre-COVID, the school hosted a multicultural show which had the students present their stories, as well as at a few parent events. They have also been featured on the I Learn America website. Let's see a video they put together.
Me mudé a los Estados Unidos porque quería un mejor futuro y venir a estar de nuevo con mi mamá y mi hermano pequeño.
So what we're going to do right now is we are going to share, maybe Bruno, I'm just going to go ahead and, pick on you today, Bruno. I'd like you to just share your story with the class. Listen to each other and to speak what? From the heart. Right.
Yo pasé por un centro de migración porque yo venía solo, detención de menores. Entonces yo estuve 2 meses ahí. Yo pasé Navidad, Año Nuevo y mi cumpleaños ahí. No fue una bonita experiencia, pero yo sí me acuerdo de algo. Fue cuando mi cumpleaños es el 12 de enero. Entonces, el 12 de enero a mí me dijeron que me tenían un regalo. Y el regalo que me habían dicho que me tenían era que ya me iba a ir de ahí. Entonces el 13 de enero, el día siguiente de mi cumpleaños, me salí de ahí. Y para mí ese ha sido el mejor regalo que he tenido en toda mi vida.
¿Cómo se sintió estar sola en un lugar bien grande?
Yo estaba cansado, con miedo, y aparte que yo tenía asma.
Y la historia de Bruno me parece muy bonita porque es muy parecida a toda la historia que ha vivido toda mi familia. Toda mi familia es indocumentada. Y yo quiero que ellos agarren papeles para que ya no crucen como indocumentados.
Contar tu historia te hace más fuerte. Hay gente que la tiene muy guardado y digamos, todas las noches o todos los días se aferra a esa historia y se siente muy mal.
You guys did the line, and a lot of you had a lot to say. We're going to continue this, but with your families.
Primero, tiene que hacer 2 puntos.
¿Siempre en la línea?
Sí.
¿Toda? ¿Está bien?
Este es para mí un punto demasiado grande. Llegamos a México, tuvimos que dormir en la calle y mucha basura. Yo nunca había vivido esa situación, no sabía qué hacerme. Luego llegamos a este otro punto porque llegamos a la frontera con Estados Unidos. Estuvimos muchos días, también fue muy difícil porque me separaron de usted. Y ahora estamos aquí. Estoy muy feliz porque estamos en Estados Unidos y estamos juntos.
Este ejercicio es más para ver la historia de cada persona, haciendo líneas que son como lo que es tu vida, lo que representa tu vida.
Soy ingeniero y me ha tocado pues, hacer trabajos muy diferentes a los que yo hacía allá. Hay que ser fuerte porque no es fácil. Es very, very difficult, pero por ello lo hago.
Mi fuerza y mi inspiración, definitivamente, mis hijos. Sacarlos adelante ha sido desde que me vine de Venezuela mi sueño. Sí he tenido muchas tristezas, perdí a mi padre estando aquí y no pude estar en ese momento, pero ellas son mi apoyo y mi fuerza y mis hermanos y mi familia entendieron. Y bueno, lo amo, papito, ¿viste?
Hola, mi nombre es José, soy de Honduras. Bueno, mi historia, yo era un niño bueno en Honduras, estudioso, siempre sacaba el primer lugar. Pero lo malo es que en Honduras, aunque tú estudias mucho, el futuro está muy difícil. Bueno, un día mi mamá me dijo que íbamos a venir aquí. Pensábamos en nuestra mente que el camino era muy difícil y muy peligroso, ya que mucha gente muere diario. Pero era más peligroso quedarse en nuestro país. Cruzamos al otro lado. Nos llevaron ahí, como dice mi amigo, a la perrera, a la hilera, con mi mamá. Y nos separaron. Y mi mamá estaba lejos y no sabía qué hacer. Entonces llegó un día y salimos de ahí con mi mamá. Ahora estoy muy feliz. Bueno, estoy en Estados Unidos, tengo un mejor futuro. Y todos los otros también tienen un buen futuro. Así que aprovechenlo. Yo creo que otros niños podrían aprender de mi historia a ser fuertes, porque al principio no es duro, pero después es muy bueno.
Hay cosas así traumantes que han pasado en la historia de mucha gente. Por eso es importante contarlo, compartirlo con alguien para sentirse más seguros. Contar tu historia puede inspirar a más gente.
What a video. Now I'd like you to take a moment and place yourself on the compass and reflect on why you are there. What are your thoughts about the students sharing their stories? Pause the video to stop and jot your thoughts.
We asked Alyssa Sinway, the ESOL coordinator at Palm Springs Middle School, a couple of questions. Have you seen a positive change in your immigrant students after they have written and shared their story with other people? Has it made a positive impact on your school climate after the students share their stories?
iLearn America has been an amazing project that has given our ESOL students a sense of community amongst each other and has brought their parents in and given them an opportunity to also share their stories with each other. It has fostered a sense of pride in our kids, stifling the fear and embarrassment of being newcomers into the U.S. and into our school. By sharing their emotional stories with each other, with their families, and with their teachers, students felt accepted, supported, and included. It has given them freedom to be their authentic selves without fear of holding secrets inside. Here are some pictures from the pre-COVID events showcasing the iLearn America project. It has been an amazing project which made people aware that everyone has a unique and meaningful story to tell.
We also had a conversation with Ms. Crisfonte, the teacher that you saw in the video. She's an ESOL language arts teacher at Palm Springs Middle School.
Have you seen a positive change in your immigrant students after they have written and shared their stories with other people?
I have seen a positive change in my students. Many who were shy and or quiet suddenly started expressing themselves. It's obvious how proud they are of their countries and how excited they are to share their stories. I remember one of my students in particular, Jose, who never spoke in class. He had been in the school for a few months, pensive and silent. Once the iLearn America project started at my school, everything changed. He started to smile and open up about what he went through. He had so much to share, and guess what? We were all listening. We were fascinated by his story. When he realized that he wasn't alone in his journey, he truly opened up and was no longer shy.
How has it helped you as a teacher to hear their story?
As a teacher, I realized that our students have so much to share with the world. Hearing their stories has moved me to tears at times. Some have made me sad, some excited, but so hopeful that they can still fulfill their dreams and reach for their stars no matter the obstacles that may get in the way. No matter their journey, they're not alone. Many students will tell me there's so much pain in my story. As a teacher, I would encourage them to take this pain and turn it into a story. iLearn America has taken a life of its own. My classes have not only started with timelines, but have also created amazing booklets and shoeboxes of their life. These are examples of some of the student stories. When students share their stories, they also share their intelligence, their imagination, and their multilingual talents. When students do that, they feel affirmed in their school and in the classroom context. They are invested in their identities much more actively, and they are also more invested in the learning process.
How has the project changed during COVID times?
Due to COVID, things are a bit different this year. However, I still found a way to be creative by having students create their timeline on a Google Jamboard. Excellent responses from the students. Here are some examples of the students' timeline made on Google Jamboard.
What can we do as an educator to foster a welcoming and inclusive environment where students can tell their stories? According to the book, Culturally Responsive Teaching for Multilingual Learners, or MLs, one strategy to promote MLs' assets is to encourage storytelling. We all love to hear a story, and MLs sharing their own stories is one way we can build bridges and help foster connections with our ML students. This activity supports the process of learning more about students' lives and experiences so that we, as educators, develop better understanding of the linguistic and cultural assets that our students bring to our classrooms. Be sure to give MLs the choice to share as much of their stories as they feel comfortable with, or to have the option to not share them at all, as some students may have experienced traumatic events that they wish not to divulge. A culturally responsive educator understands an asset-based perspective requires you to approach the work you do with ELLs with respect and empathy. This will grow when you try to put yourself in the shoes of their students and families. Imagine what it would be like to assimilate into an unfamiliar culture, learn a new language, and figure out a new school system. As we consider the obstacles that ELLs might overcome in order to acquire a new language, while at the same time learning the content, it can be easy to approach our work with a deficit perspective. The deficit perspective will focus on the ELL's challenges and view their home languages and culture as a hindrance to overcome. Whereas an asset-based perspective is one that values students' home languages and cultures and sees them as a foundation for future learning. Language is a roadmap of a culture. It tells you where its peoples come from and where they are going, a quote by Rita Mae Brown. Here are 10 ways to create a positive, identity-affirming, welcoming environment for all students, not just ELLs. It comes from a blog called empoweringELLs.com. 2 ways you can have an asset-based perspective and create a welcoming environment is to pronounce a student's name correctly. In many cultures, it is a significant task to name a child, which might include ceremonies and rituals. If we want to honor them and their culture, we need to practice and insist on pronouncing it correctly. One way you can do this is by recording students pronouncing their own names, and you can replay it to practice. Refrain from substituting an ELL's first name with an English nickname. When creating a welcoming environment for ELLs, we want to validate our students' cultural and linguistic background and recognize the benefits of being bilingual by encouraging the use of any language and allowing ELLs to use resources in other languages. Research shows that ELLs can draw from their home language when acquiring knowledge and skills in English. When providing students opportunities to work in their home language or use home language resources, teachers need to be mindful of the level of their students' literacy in the home language. Students may have stronger listening and speaking skills than reading and writing skills in their home language. Teachers also need to explicitly teach students how to collaborate respectfully. Different cultures expect students to interact in different ways. Some cultures consider interruptions appropriate, while other cultures put more value on holding back. Simply providing a time to turn and talk will not always result in the students talking. When students are given collaborative activities, it should be purposeful and used as a means of achieving specific learning goals. Teachers need to clearly communicate to students what they are going to talk about and why they are doing the activity. Go over rules such as taking turns, staying on topic, being respectful, and actively listening and building on each other's comments. Our culturally and linguistically diverse students do not come with an empty suitcase. They are filled with valuable assets. All our culturally and linguistically diverse students come to school with valuable experiences, and it is our role as aspiring culturally relevant practitioners to affirm, celebrate, and include their experiences and knowledge throughout our students' learning experiences. We also want to encourage ELLs to share connections between their lives and the topics. We want to recognize the assets and experiences students bring to school. We can ask students to reach into their prior knowledge about that content we are teaching to make instruction more familiar and less abstract for our ELLs by directly linking concepts to the student's background experience, personal, cultural, or academic.
What can we do as a school? What can we do as a school to promote a welcoming and inclusive environment? Creating a safe space is critical for the students, and it must happen at the school-wide level. As a school community, some of the ways that we can create a safe space include fostering an open and welcoming environment for all students, embracing and valuing diversity and the cultural backgrounds of all students, building relationships with students and families, withholding judgment and biases about immigration status, establishing safe spaces and allow all immigrant youth to share freely and engage with their peers. One resource that the school can use to welcome all students and their families is the EL and Family Welcoming Checklist. Let's preview the questions from the checklist and reflect on some of the school practices. As a school, what are some things that we do? Do we display student work on the walls, including work in the home languages? Do we display maps and flags of students' home countries? Do we have bilingual staff or bilingual volunteers who can meet with the families as needed? Do we have bilingual books in students' home languages in the school library and classrooms? Do we provide staff opportunities to learn some common phrases in the family's home language and key information about families' cultures? Some of the school-based initiatives that can also be put in place to foster a positive and support school climate are the following from the slide. These school-based initiatives empower our youth to lead and strengthen their school community. It allows the students to make a positive impact on all of the students, especially those with a multicultural background. Some schools may already have some of these initiatives in place or something familiar or something similar. You may even want to consider incorporating one of these initiatives into your school to assist the school's positive behavior support team regarding those issues that utilize the student voice and student involvement.
What can we do as a district to promote welcoming and inclusive environment? One initiative we have done at the district level is the Promoting Welcoming and Inclusive Schools Professional Development since FY18. This professional development was established to make schools aware of the resolution, which was signed on April 19th, 2017. Following the signing of the resolution was the creation of the Immigrant Support Plan. The professional development was provided as an avenue to make district employees, schools, teachers, and staff aware that our schools are a safe and welcoming environment for all students, specifically immigrant students. In FY19 Year 1, each school district employee watched an online e-learning course to build awareness of the resolution and immigrant support plan. In FY20 Year 2, each student created their immigrant support school plan and shared this information with their teachers and staff. In FY21 Year 3, each school addressed school culture by bringing awareness to microaggressions as well as getting students and the community involved. This initiative has been very successful and received positive feedback from teachers and administrators. Next year, we will continue to build upon what the schools have already accomplished. The purpose for providing this professional development is because the School District of Palm Beach County envisions a dynamic and collaborative multicultural community where all diversity is celebrated, where each school community promotes a spirit of caring with the intention to welcome and include all regardless of immigration status, religion, or national origin. Nothing can erode a new arrival's sense of belonging and value or create a school climate of disrespect and fear than targeted bias. Therefore, we must be aware of and raise our consciousness to how biases, either intentional or unintentional, can diminish the goodwill, support, and intentions for which our resolution created. Briefly, let's review the definition of bias. Bias is an inclination or preference either for or against an individual or a group that interferes with impartial judgment. These perspectives are based on one's life's experiences. What does bias look like? It can be expressed in two ways. The two types of biases are known as explicit and implicit. Let's look at explicit bias as defined by the Anti-Defamation League. Explicit bias refers to the conscious attitudes, stereotypes, and overt intentional actions, positive or negative, toward members of a group merely because of their membership in that group. Implicit bias refers to an unconscious attitudes, stereotypes, and unintentional actions, positive or negative, toward members of a group merely because of their membership in that group. These associations develop over a lifetime beginning at a very early age through exposure to direct and indirect messages. When people act out their implicit bias, they are not aware that their actions are biased. In fact, those biases may be in direct conflict with a person's explicit beliefs and values. It is important to remember that intent doesn't negate impact. As a district, we strive to recognize and eliminate bias in order to create an environment where students, families, staff, and communities will develop agency and voice. The Immigrant Support Plan for the School District of Palm Beach County was designed to provide resources and information to help support immigrant students and their families who live in the School District of Palm Beach County. You can scan the QR code on the top left to visit the website. This toolkit aims to support schools by providing information that will This toolkit aims to support schools by providing information that will enable the schools to better meet the unique needs of immigrant students. As such, the toolkit resources are agencies and programs, family safety planning checklist, legal, medical, and social community services, and finally, instructional resources for educational leaders and instructors, which can be found on the Promoting Welcoming and Inclusive Google site. One aspect of providing resources to the school district employees is the Promoting Welcoming and Inclusive Google site. This site houses the professional development for school district employees, as well as the instructional resources section and many other resources to help support the welcoming and inclusive school climate. It can be accessed through the employee portal by searching for the Welcoming and Inclusive tile. One of the PDs provided during the FY21 was Getting Students Involved, which focuses on having students contribute to promoting welcoming and inclusive climate on a school campus. These are some district initiatives put in place to support a positive and supportive school climate, such as SEL, social emotional learning, and the 7 essential components of PBS, positive behavior support. Another component of the FY21 PD involves an important group that influences the school's climate, which are volunteers. Volunteers include individuals who assist on school campus, face-to-face or during distance learning as a PTO, PTA member, SAC member, or one who works with students. It is imperative that not only volunteers, but those members who participate in the PTO, PTA, and SAC meetings also contribute to creating a safe, welcoming, trusting, nurturing, and culturally sensitive environment for our students and their families, regardless of their immigration status. In order for our immigrant families to become involved in the school environment, they must feel welcomed by not only the school staff, but the volunteers which serve on the PTO, PTA, and SAC. This year, we started requesting schools to educate and share the Immigrant Support School Plan with their volunteers and all members of the PTO, PTA, and SAC, emphasizing the characteristics and standards of a welcoming and inclusive environment. Now, to wrap up our professional development for our optimistic closure, let's take a moment and write down what you can do to help affirm new immigrant students from Latin America. Thank you for joining us for the PD titled Affirming New Immigrant Students from Latin America. If you would like a copy of this presentation, you can scan the QR code. We would also like to give a special thank you to Palm Springs Middle School staff, students, and families for sharing their experiences with I Learn America for this PD.